This is Juan Doses. This is another machete review, or part 2 of my review of the Condor Engineer's Bolo Machete. This is one massive chunk of metal. It scales in at a whopping 1.92 pounds. This thing is almost 2 pounds. £2, and in total length, almost 20 inches long. Thing's enormous. It comes with a sheath, which is very attractive. High quality leather. A little clunky, and in my opinion the design leaves a bit to be desired. But no less, the sheath is a good quality leather sheath. Complements the knife rather nicely. Pluses and minuses about this knife. What I like about it is it comes out of the box very sharp. I also like this knife because it's very heavy duty. Has excellent chopping power. Its full tang construction is excellent and very strong. Here are my complaints. The handle out of the factory, you can see this is a little squared off and not particularly comfortable, especially for heavier work. So I may very well opt to grind the handle down carefully, not to overdo it, but just grind off the corners just enough to make it a little more comfortable to use. Now, this is a practical working blade. These machetes, or machetes similar to them, were used in the Spanish-American War, according to the historians. It's got a very nice hammered finish. The blade is massively thick, and I wouldn't use this for surgery, but you can certainly cut off a head or an arm right quick with this bad boy. This blade is no joke. I personally would carry this on a camping trip because it would be useful for cutting limbs or chunks of wood. Now again, I'm not into batoning knives or batoning anything. You want to watch that? Go watch somebody else's channel. Another thing that people think is that there's an invincible or indestructible blade out there, and there is not. There is no knife out there that will last forever. There's no life out there that will keep its edge forever. All lives are inherently weak because they are sharpened and they have a thin edge. So this knife is by no means Excalibur, but as knives go, it is heavy duty. And I will not pound in tent stakes or baton with it. This knife was carried on somebody's hip for the express purpose of lopping the occasional branch or tree, or cutting the occasional rope or whatever needs to be cut. This is not a combat weapon. This is a field instrument. And this was carried for occasional use. knife or no blade ever lasts forever. They will all chip, they will all rust. Even the stainless steel will rust. So don't think that just because I spent $70 on this knife doesn't mean that it will last forever. All knives chip, all knives fail, all knives rust. So even though this is a heavy-duty chunk of metal, I will only use this knife for cutting. And cutting only wood or softer objects, not wires, not fencing, and not metal. I like to use this knife to cut up various boards and chunks of wood, but the instant this blade strikes a nail or even a staple, it will get nicked or dulled. So for anybody that uses these instruments, it behooves you to inspect everything you're cutting for rocks, even dirt, or staples and or metal. There is no magical knife, but this particular knife is a beast and will last and hold up for its intended purpose. So overall, I give this knife a very high rating. I bought this knife because it is a useful tool for my purposes. And again, my only gripes is that this handle is a little too squared for my little girly hands. I'm probably going to take it to Anza and have the handle carefully ground down, and if possible, even have these rivets, the whole handle skinnied down just a bit to fit my relatively small hands. But I must emphasize that the quality of this knife is quite good. I love the dark wood. The brass is beautiful. You have very attractive lanyard hole. And forgive me for not knowing what this kind of wood is, but it's very attractive wood. And once I grind it down a bit and smooth it out, I'll use a light coat of linseed oil to darken it up. Now another thing is, this is my own personal discovery, is I like to use chainsaw oil for my blades. Chainsaw oil is very thick, and I only need a couple drops of chainsaw oil to cover this entire blade. So the viscous oil that one uses in chainsaws seems to work very well for these blades. I like the aesthetics of this knife. I like how it's constructed and put together. And it really works very well as a chopping blade. This blade would also work fantastically well for cutting bamboo, sawgrass, and any other type of jungle experience or jungle type vegetation. But more importantly, remember, we have a Hollywoodized view of machetes. People typically did not spend their whole day, unless they were field workers, cutting their way through anything. These things were a sidearm and used to cut the occasional obstruction. If you go ahead and use these as a field instrument, these things came in boxes by the hundreds, and they were, back in the day, a semi-disposable tool. So they're called a crate item. I'm not sure about this particular knife, but most machetes are crate items, whether they be a cane knife or a bolo. Machetes made by Tramontina are semi-disposable. They're crate items. They're not meant to last forever. So again, I would rate this knife very highly for my purposes. This knife is not for everybody. It is very heavy. And the average person would indeed have a hard time swinging this. But if you knew a thing or two about blades, you would also know that that it's your skills. These are not meant to be swung like a baseball bat or with your full power. These are meant to be used with control. And sooner or later, I'll get around to demonstrating some proper ways to use a machete. So this is Juan Doses, and again, this is a follow-up review of the Engineer's Bolo. And this particular blade is a copy of the antique made by the company Condor. And John Flowers designed this particular blade. Not this one in specific, but he came up with the design based on the antique that I showed you in the previous video. Thank you again for watching. Please hit the like and subscribe, and please leave a comment. Thank you.